Now, when we first extend ourselves into this world as babies and children, we are embodying our true self. It exists within our heart, and we are plugged in to this infinite energy source that is our greater being. This is why children have seemingly unlimited energy, right? Adults wonder where they get it from. Well, they get it from themselves. They get it from their true self.
Mm.
And its proper home, its proper place of residence is within the heart center. Sometime during late childhood and moving into puberty, the conditioning of culture, society, religion, parents, politics, on and on and on, convinces the child that they are not a divine being, convinces the child that they are simply just this human body, this tiny little vulnerable body, convinces them that they have to submit to authority, that they cannot make any decisions for themselves, that they must do what they are told by all authority figures at all times, that they must submit, that they must sit down, shut up, and behave. And throughout this process, what occurs is that life force, that true inner self, obliges the beliefs that the child is taking on and decouples from the body. Now, it doesn't go very far. It stays hovering above that child, it stays hovering above the individual. But this is why we even have the concept of the higher self,
Wow.
is due to this decoupling process that happens because of our beliefs that we have been inculcated with from childhood.
Wow.
The most foundational aspect of any form of esoteric wisdom or spiritual practice is to know thyself. And you have to embody yourself to know yourself. You have to have your true self seated in its proper position at the core of your being, at your heart center. To minimize the ego. Now, we're not killing the ego, we're not getting rid of it, we are putting it in its place. The ego's proper role is to be a little guidance system for navigating physical reality. Its proper role is to help you also defend your sovereign space. The ego is there as a servant. It should not be running the show. It should not be constantly streaming a never ending flow of thoughts through your mind. You should be able to think into the deeper parts of yourself. You should be able to tap into your subconscious mind. You should be able to tap into your divine inner self or your higher self. You should be able to think from those other levels of your being at will. So that can only happen when the ego is properly minimized, when it's sitting quietly, waiting for a moment where it's appropriate to remind you of something. Like, for example, if you are running errands, the ego is very helpful for reminding you to get the things that you need to get while you're running those errands. Or if you're hiking in the woods, the ego is good for letting you know that you should bring along your bear spray in case you run into a bear, that you can use that to effect an escape. You know, it's the little things. That's what the ego is really all about, is the little things. Now, the problem, the distortion, is that the ego ends up doing all of the thinking, gets completely fixated on all of the trappings of physical reality, of all of the possessions and affectations that one can put upon themselves to raise their status in the eyes of others, and it becomes a completely status oriented, out of control little monster. So we put that ego in its place. See, and it's important though not to vilify the ego. It's a useful tool, but it's become distorted. It's just to identify the distortions and to go beyond them. I'm not at all an advocate for being egoless, because that can lead to being easily manipulated. The ego is necessary, but it needs to be emulating your higher self or your divine inner self. The ego needs to formulate itself as a reflection of your true self, not as a reflection of a distorted society that we currently live in. We have to take responsibility for what we have put out and projected out. And when we take responsibility for that energy, when we take it back, there's two halves of the energy refund. You give back what's been put on you, and you take back what you have put out. And when you take responsibility for that energy, you can then transmute it back into pure, unformatted energetic frequency and have it available to you as a creative potential to do something new, to create something new. And in this way, we begin to free ourselves from that constant back and forth of feeling judged and projecting judgment back onto others. Right? That's the general knee-jerk response when we feel someone judging us, is that we judge them. We project back onto them a different form of judgment, or even more judgment. So by breaking free of that, then we can actually look at what is going on in our psyche, and we can then begin reclaiming the energy that we have given to false beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, identities, etc. So that process of reclaiming energy, reclaiming power, that's what follows as the next step. And that's a process. That's a seemingly never-ending process. It's a very long experience. It's something that needs to be done on a daily basis. The process of peeling away the layers of illusions, the illusory layers of separation from source, of belief in self-limitation. These have to be peeled away on a daily basis. I often get asked, well, why can't I just do it all at once? And the answer to that is because you would probably die. We have invested so much energy into forming an identity, a concept of ourselves around the beliefs that we have been instilled with, that if we pulled them all at once, there would be no, let's say, no solid ground to stand on to reformulate ourselves.
Wow.
It would be a truly traumatic experience. But when you do it a little bit at a time, right? That's that old proverb or metaphor of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Right? It's a massive undertaking. You can't just do it all at once. You've got to do it one bite at a time, one day at a time. And you just make it a part of your lifestyle. You make it a part of your daily process. What it does need to be, though, is that all of the individuals within the community need to be working on their own sovereignty, on their own energetic liberation from the matrix of the demiurgic control grid. Now, whatever techniques that they want to use to do that, the technique itself is less important than the desire and the intent to be a sovereign, to live as a sovereign. And then you have a community of people who all recognize their own sovereignty and the sovereignty of each other person within that community. And they work together based on that sovereignty. So they are then cooperating with the awareness that they are interconnected, yet sovereign, and all also connected to infinite source.